traders and investors, LA here. It is the daily NeoTA wrap where we take a look at these markets, doing it from a neoclassical perspective, looking at supply and demand on the charts, using that information to understand timing, to understand entry and exit, where you want to get in, where you get out, which way you want to point. I try to do this show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday. I'm kind of on vacation, so it's a little spotty, but I'll bring it to show to you as I can. As far as these markets, let's take a look at the numbers here. We actually had a breakdown to the downside today in the broad markets, but by the end of the day, not that bad. Down less than a percent, almost a percent on the Russell. That was the worst. But if you look at the NDX, the NASDAQ, almost flat on the other indexes. Overseas down 1.1, 1.4% in Europe, and in China it was flat, or at least that's what I have here. It looks like that's actually a bad, probably a bad quote, so we didn't get the update there. As far as the sectors, broad sectors, not too bad. I mean, they were down about 0.5% on a couple of them, but the rest of them about flat. And if I move over to the other markets, 1.2% higher on gold, and that was probably the highlight of that area. Moving over to the S&P, let's look at the index. So you actually opened up lower and then proceeded to work higher the rest of the day. So the range that's in effect is this little range here. As you can see, you got down, almost tested the bottom of that range, but didn't actually do the test, and then you just climbed all day long. That's what the white candle tells you. Still inside the range. That hasn't changed. Let's look at the other indexes and see if they're any different. We'll start with the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ was having a pretty good sell-off at the beginning of the morning, but again, just like the S&P, did the same thing. Matter of fact, the NASDAQ did test the bottom. That low was 6318.62. We got down to 6309. So we got down, we tested the bottom. We tested on what turns out to be lighter volume. So you test on lighter volume, you hold the bottom. That says this thing's going to try to run back to the top side. That's at least what the index tells us. Now the Russell, it's been a different story for a long time. The Russell has started to break, it looks like, to the downside. So you got 1398.83. It looks like it closed at 1396. So just underneath it. So that's probably going to get a downside break of that particular one. 1396.87 over here. 1396. So it closed under one swing point low, it looks like. So the Russell in jeopardy of trying to break out 3 swing point lows that are almost at the same price point. If it does that, and volume is expanding over here, if it does that, right, you have an ABCD structure that has been actualized as of tonight. That could take it down pretty deep. These lows down here also correspond to lows on the broad weekly chart. So if we look at the weekly chart over here, you can see that those lows, let me see, that's 1351. And let me pull up the daily again. 1351 is... yeah, it's in this area, 1351. So you can see you could get a faster move down to the bottom into this area. That would complete that ABCD structure and set up a larger potential move to the downside. But that's the small caps. You're not seeing it elsewhere. Looking overseas, let's see what those markets look like. I haven't looked at them in a while. Let's see if there's anything interesting happening there. I'm going to go to Europe. I'll start with the CACs. I'll just start with the German DAX, and let's see what that one looks like. So let's broaden it out here, and I don't have the volumes on them. I have to get the volumes. So yeah, but that's building out. That's building out to the downside. And let's see what the CACs looks like. It's probably going to be the same without the volumes, but at least we'll have the price points. Yeah, these are trying to set up a break to the downside. And so, you know, you've got these ranges that have been in effect up here at the tops, and the lower part of those ranges, right, this lower half down here has been where it's at. And if you look on the NASDAQ and the NDX, it's the same sort of thing over there. That's what they're doing. You know, they're on the lower half of it. They haven't been able to get it back above it. And so that to me is a potential problem going forward if these indexes can't pop to the top side. Let's go back over and look at the sectors real quick. So the SOX looks okay. XLB has gotten under a swing point high. That's a break there. So in other words, you have a bullish retest regenerate. This could not regenerate to the top side, so that's a negative. That says what was up is probably sideways. Financials have been the strength, and they continue to hold up well. They came back into a swing point high and held. That's the second trip down now. And so that means that the probabilities, if they come back one more time, are not nearly as good. XLE still can't lift. Let's see about the industrials. And the industrials, they were the stronger one all day. They held up pretty well. And I saw consumer discretionary was struggling today. Let's see what that one looked like at the close. And that also got a pretty good spanking to the downside, but I'll be darned if it didn't hold the swing point low. That low was 90.72. You close it at 90.76, so just barely inside of it, even though it was down big to start with. So overall, you know, like a cat with 9 lives, this market's got 100 and it's still using them up. Still holding, still mixed, still anybody's ball game. Do we have a top end? That's a good question. It's hard to tell that still because you've got enough pushing this to the upside in terms of sectors to keep it up there. On the flip side, the small caps really struggling. And if the small caps, that divergence continues, one side or the other is going to have to break. Market is extended overall. I would expect that at some point here you are going to see a break to the downside, even though it is begrudgingly hard to get. Have a great one. Take care. Good night.